My name is Alara Vance, and I believe that our lives are not defined by the moments that break us, but by how we choose to gather the pieces. I learned this on a humid Charleston night, the air so thick with the coming rain it felt like a weighted blanket. I was on my knees, zipping a worn duffel bag, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grasp the metal tab. Inside, nestled between my daughter Lily's plush bunny and my son Finn's scuffed-up boots, was the sum of my courage. The floorboards of our grand south of Broad townhouse creaked overhead. Marcus's footsteps were always deliberate, a heavy, rhythmic beat meant to announce his presence, his authority. The sound was a prelude to the storm that was always gathering just behind his eyes. "And where, exactly, do you think you're going, Alara?" His voice wasn't loud, but it sliced through the oppressive silence of the house, sharp and cold. It was the voice he used to dismantle my confidence piece by piece, the one that made me feel small and foolish. I froze, my own heartbeat a frantic drum against my ribs, so loud I was sure he could hear it. The canvas strap of the bag bit into my palm, a pathetic shield against the man who was my husband. Slowly, I rose and turned to face him. His handsome face, the one that had once charmed an entire city, was a mask of unnerving calm. But his eyes, they held a familiar, frightening fire. I had learned to read that fire, to fear the heat of it. His hand lifted, not quickly, but with a slow, terrifying deliberation. In that instant, the opulent, high-ceilinged room dissolved, and I was no longer a 34-year-old woman. I was 7 again, a little girl with scraped knees and a heart full of hope, small and powerless, waiting for a shadow to fall. My breath hitched in my throat. Time stretched, each tick of the antique grandfather clock in the hall a lifetime of dread. But then his gaze flickered, moving past my shoulder toward the open bathroom door. His hand stopped, suspended in the heavy air. Confusion washed over his features, quickly replaced by something else, something sharper. Panic. My own eyes followed his, my pulse a roaring sea in my ears. And that's when I saw him. But before I tell you who stood in that doorway, a quiet anchor in my raging storm, I need to take you back. Back to a different time, to a small, sun-drenched apartment on a less fashionable Charleston street, where the world still felt safe and my own story was just beginning. I was 7, and my world was the size of a 2-bedroom apartment above a bakery. It smelled of my mother's lavender soap and the sweet, tangy scent of the lemon bars she was always baking. Clara Vance was my sun, my moon, and all my stars. Her laughter was like wind chimes, and her stories were woven from magic. Every night, she'd tuck me into my little bed and tell me tales of mermaids who befriended lonely sailors and of little girls who found their strength in the heart of the sea. Her voice was as soft and soothing as the tide lapping against the shore just a few blocks away. Tucked in a small wooden box on my nightstand was my greatest treasure, a small, smooth piece of sea glass, the color of a pale blue sky. She'd found it on the beach at Sullivan's Island the day I was born. "See how the ocean took something broken and made it beautiful," she told me, her fingers tracing its soft edges. "That's you, my little Alara. You can weather any storm and come out shining." One morning, she put on her favorite floral dress, a cascade of blues and greens that matched her eyes. Her light brown hair was pinned up, showing the graceful line of her neck. "You look like a queen, Mama," I said, my bare feet dangling from the kitchen chair. She smiled, a light that reached the very back of her eyes. "Every day I get to spend with you is a reason to celebrate, my love." We spent that afternoon at Waterfront Park, sitting by the pineapple fountain, its gentle spray cooling the air. She held my hand tighter than usual as we watched the sailboats glide across the harbor, her silence feeling different, heavier than the humid coastal air. "Do you know how much I love you, Alara?" she asked, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "More than all the sea glass in the ocean," I answered, reciting our familiar mantra. She kissed the top of my head, her lips trembling just a little. "No matter what happens," she whispered, pressing my hand against her chest, "I am always, always with you. Right here." That night, she read me a story about a lighthouse that guided a lost ship safely home. I fell asleep to the cadence of her voice, wrapped in the certainty that it would be there to greet me in the morning. But it wasn't. The next morning, the apartment was silent. They told me her heart, a heart I knew to be filled with more love than the ocean itself, had simply stopped. It was a concept my 7-year-old mind couldn't grasp. A heart so full couldn't just be empty. I kept asking the neighbors who came with sad eyes and casseroles, "When is Mama coming home?" "She's resting, sweetie," they'd say, their pity a suffocating blanket. I believed them. I had to. But a week later, a woman in a severe navy blue suit arrived with a briefcase and a stack of papers. She packed my few belongings into a cardboard box, leaving the smell of lemon bars and lavender behind forever. I screamed, my small hands gripping the familiar wood of the doorframe. "I want my mama." The woman's voice was devoid of warmth, a flat, hard thing. "Your mother is gone, Alara. It's time to be a big girl now." That was the day I learned that love could disappear like a footprint in the sand, washed away by the tide. And being a big girl, I discovered, meant learning to be profoundly alone. The Palmetto Children's Home smelled of antiseptic and boiled cabbage. It was a place of echoing hallways, peeling paint, and rows of metal bunk beds that were always cold to the touch. I was a ghost child, clutching my piece of sky blue sea glass, the only part of my mother they'd let me keep. "Your bunk is over there," a tired-looking woman named Ms. Albright said, gesturing vaguely. "Rules are on the wall. Dinner's at 6. I nodded, my throat too tight and raw from crying to form words. That first night, a girl a few years older, with watchful eyes and a braid as long as my arm, leaned down from the top bunk. "My name's Chloe," she whispered. "You should hide that pretty stone. Nothing precious lasts long here." I curled my fingers around the sea glass, its smooth surface a familiar comfort in the terrifying dark. I tucked it deep inside my pillowcase, a secret link to a world that no longer existed. My days fell into a colorless rhythm: wake, eat, school, chores, sleep. I learned to make myself small, to be invisible. I told myself that Mama was on a long trip, that she was getting better, and that one day she would walk through those cold, metal doors and take me home. That hope was a flickering candle in a hurricane, the only thing that kept the darkness from swallowing me whole. Chloe taught me the unwritten rules of survival. Don't draw attention. Don't trust easily. And never, ever expect anyone to stay. "You got any other family?" she asked me one night, our whispers weaving through the chorus of snores and sniffles in the dorm. I shook my head, the movement barely perceptible in the dim light. "Just Mama." Chloe sighed, a sound far too old for a 10-year-old. "It's the kids with nobody who have the hardest time getting out." 6 months crawled by. Then, one Tuesday, a polished black car I'd never seen before pulled up to the home. A man in an expensive-looking suit stepped out and walked into the director's office. A few minutes later, Ms. Albright called my name. "Alara Vance?" My heart stuttered. No one ever used my full name. He was tall and had my mother's light brown hair, but his eyes, a startlingly clear blue, were all his own. He had a strong jaw that looked like it was set against the world. "I'm Richard," he said, his voice quiet and a little rough, as if he wasn't used to speaking softly. "I'm your father." The room seemed to tilt. Father? My mother had never spoken of a father. He was a blank page in my story. "How?" was all I could manage to whisper. He knelt, bringing himself down to my level. His tailored suit jacket brushed against the scuffed linoleum floor. "A friend of your mother's found me after she passed away. I had to take a test to be sure. But I'm here now, Alara. I'm here to take you home." A part of me, the small, lonely part that still believed in magic, wanted to leap into his arms. But another, newer part, the part forged in loss and institutional gray, held back. My mind was a flurry of unspoken questions. "Where were you? Why didn't you come sooner?" He explained that he never knew I existed, that my mother had left before telling him she was pregnant. He swore he would have moved mountains for me if he'd known. But as he spoke, his gaze drifted past me, to a point on the wall somewhere over my shoulder. And that small, wary part of me knew he wasn't telling me the whole truth. But I went with him. I followed him to the shiny black car, my sea glass clutched in my pocket, because the hope of a home, any home, was stronger than my doubt. His house was on a cobblestone street near the Battery, a 3-story Charleston single with sweeping piazzas and the sweet scent of jasmine hanging in the air. A woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile greeted us at the massive, dark wood door. Her name was Eleanor, and she was Richard's wife. "Welcome, Alara," she said, her smile warm but hesitant, as if she were handling a fragile, frightened bird. "We are so happy to have you here. This is your home now." The words were a promise I was too afraid to believe. My new room was vast, larger than my entire old apartment, with a 4-poster bed draped in white linen and windows that looked out onto a garden of blooming camellias. But it didn't feel like home. Home was the sound of my mother's laughter and the simple comfort of her presence. This was just a beautiful, quiet place where I slept. Living with Richard and Eleanor was like learning a foreign language. They were kind, but there was a formality to our interactions, a careful distance I couldn't seem to cross. Eleanor tried the hardest. She'd leave little hand-drawn pictures on my pillow and baked lemon bars from a recipe she said she'd found, ones that tasted almost, but not quite, like Mama's. Richard was a provider of things. He bought me new clothes, enrolled me in an excellent private school, and hired a tutor for the subjects I'd fallen behind in. He'd ask about my day with a detached sort of interest. "How was school? Do you need anything?" But he never asked how I was feeling. He never sat with me on the piazza steps and just listened. I told myself I was lucky. I had a roof over my head, more possessions than I could have ever imagined, and a chance at a normal life. But every night, I'd lie in that big, lonely bed, tracing the smooth edges of my sea glass, feeling like a guest in someone else's life, a ghost haunting a beautiful house. The years drifted by. I learned to be the daughter I thought they wanted, quiet, studious, polite. I got good grades, smiled at the right times, and eventually started calling Richard Dad, though the word always felt foreign on my tongue. I was a model of a well-adjusted child, but on the inside, I still felt like that 7-year-old girl, lost and waiting. The summer I turned 18, Eleanor asked me to help her clear out some old things from the attic for a charity drive. The attic was a repository of forgotten histories, smelling of cedar and dust. Tucked away in a far corner, behind a stack of holiday decorations, I found a small, leather-bound trunk. Inside, tied with a faded satin ribbon, was a stack of letters. My breath caught in my throat when I recognized the elegant, looping script. My mother's handwriting. With trembling hands, I untied the ribbon and opened the first one. "Richard, I'm asking you not to look for us. Alara deserves a life free from the choices we made. She believes her father is a story I haven't told her yet, and for now, that is for the best. You have your life. I am building mine. But I am making you a promise, and I need you to make one to me. If anything should ever happen to me, you must take care of her. She is my everything. Please don't let her be alone." The letter was dated just weeks before she died. The words struck me with the force of a physical blow. He had known. He had known about me all along. My mother hadn't run away without telling him. She had made a choice and asked him to be her safety net. And he had waited until a stranger had to find him. He had let me languish in that cold, gray orphanage for 6 months. I sank to the floor, reading every letter, each one a fresh wave of betrayal. She had begged him to be my father if she couldn't, and he had chosen not to, not until he was forced. Eleanor found me there, surrounded by the scattered pages of my mother's truth, my body racked with sobs. "Why?" I whispered, my voice shattered. "Why didn't you tell me?" She knelt beside me, her face a canvas of regret. "Oh, Alara," she murmured, gathering me into a gentle hug. "Your mother asked us to protect her story, to protect you. She thought the truth would be too heavy a burden for a child to carry." "I'm not a child anymore," I choked out. But the weight of it felt like it was crushing me. That night, I sat on the piazza, looking out at the gaslights flickering along the street, feeling like the loneliest person in the world. I clutched my sea glass, its cool surface a small comfort. It was a piece of something broken, made beautiful by the relentless churn of the sea. I made a promise to that piece of glass, to my mother's memory, and to the little girl still hiding inside me. I would build a life for myself founded on truth, a life where love didn't come with conditions and secrets. The University of Charleston was my harbor. It was a world of ivied walls and intellectual curiosity, a place where I could be Alara Vance, not the orphan or the quiet adopted daughter. I chose to major in child psychology with a minor in art therapy. I wanted to be the person I had needed as a child, someone who knew how to look past the surface and see the stories hidden in a child's heart. Most days, you could find me in the university library's quietest corner, a small nook with a window overlooking a garden. It was my sanctuary. One autumn afternoon, a voice gently interrupted my solitude. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" "It's a full house today." I looked up into the kindest pair of hazel eyes I had ever seen. He had a stack of marine biology textbooks under his arm and a warm, easy smile. "No, it's all yours," I said, shifting my own books to make room. He slid into the chair opposite me. "I'm Leo Carter," he said, his voice as calm and steady as his presence. "Alara Vance," I replied, my own voice softer than I intended. We didn't talk much that first day or the next. We became silent study partners, sharing the space and a comfortable quiet that wasn't empty, but filled with a sort of mutual respect. He never pried, never pushed. One day, he noticed me sketching in my notebook little figures from the stories my mother used to tell. "You're very talented," he said, a genuine admiration in his voice. I felt a blush creep up my neck. "Oh, it's just doodling." "It's more than that," he insisted gently. "You're creating worlds." He told me he was studying to be a marine biologist, not for the prestige, but because he felt a duty to protect the fragile ecosystems of the ocean. We all have our own way of trying to heal things, I guess. His words resonated deep within me. It felt like he saw a part of me that I kept hidden from the world. As the weeks turned into months, our silent companionship blossomed into a real friendship. We took long walks along the Battery, the salty air whipping through our hair. He was the first person I ever showed my sea glass to. I told him the story of how my mother had found it, of what it represented. He didn't offer pity or platitudes. He just listened. Then, quietly, he told me about his own loss. His older brother had struggled with addiction for years and had died from an overdose when Leo was just a teenager. "I couldn't save him," he said, his gaze distant. "But maybe I can help save something else." His vulnerability was a gift, a key that unlocked a door inside me I thought was rusted shut. I told him everything, about the orphanage, about the letters in the attic. "I've never told anyone all of this," I admitted, my voice trembling slightly. "You never have to be anything but yourself with me, Alara," he said, his hand gently covering mine. "I'm here." That winter, Leo became my safe place. He was the first person who made me feel that I wasn't broken, just shaped by the sea, like my piece of glass. For the first time, I started to believe that I might be worthy of a love that was quiet, steady, and true. Then I met Marcus Thorne. He was a visiting professor at the Charleston College of the Arts, giving a guest lecture in one of my seminars. He was brilliant, charismatic, and exuded a confidence that was almost hypnotic. After I gave a presentation on using art to help children process trauma, he approached me. "That was remarkable, Alara," he said, his intense blue eyes locking with mine. "You have a rare gift. You just need the right person to help you cultivate it." His praise was like a drug. After years of feeling invisible, Marcus saw me, and he made me feel extraordinary. He was everything Leo wasn't: polished, ambitious, a prominent figure in Charleston's art scene. He took me to exclusive gallery openings and dinners at Husk, introducing me to people whose names I'd only read in magazines. He made me feel like I belonged in his glittering world. When Leo was offered a prestigious research grant at the Monterey Bay Aquarium in California, he asked me to go with him. "Let's build a life together, Alara," he said, his voice earnest and full of hope. "I love you." But I was afraid. Afraid of leaving the only city I'd ever known. Afraid of trusting in a love that felt so real it was terrifying. "I need more time," I told him. And in giving me the space I asked for, he unknowingly created a void. Marcus filled it. He proposed just 3 months later with a flawless diamond and a promise of a life that would be a work of art. His confidence was a tidal wave that swept away my doubts. Our wedding was a society affair, held in the stunning gardens of an old plantation. Eleanor helped me adjust my veil, her eyes full of a searching question. "Are you happy, my dear?" she asked softly. I looked at my reflection, a bride in a designer gown, and forced a smile. "Marcus is a wonderful man." She simply squeezed my hand. I asked if you were happy. I didn't know how to answer. The first few years of our marriage were a blur of social events and curated perfection. We lived in a stunning modern condo overlooking the harbor, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing a perfect picture of the city. But the perfection was only on the surface. Marcus's cultivation of my gift began to feel more like pruning. "That dress is a bit too simple for the museum gala, don't you think?" he'd say. "Let's not talk about your childhood tonight. It can make people uncomfortable." I told myself he was helping me, refining me. But really, he was sanding down my edges until I fit neatly into the box he'd designed for me. I was shrinking, my own dreams and desires fading into the background of his. The first time his words truly wounded me, I was pregnant with our daughter, Lily. My heart was a fluttering mix of terror and exhilarating joy. I had bought a tiny, pale yellow sleep suit and hidden it in my drawer, imagining the look on his face when I told him. When I finally worked up the courage, his handsome features hardened. "A baby," he said, his voice clipped and cold. "What were you thinking, Alara? We have a 5-year plan. This complicates things." It's our baby," I stammered, my joy shriveling. He stepped closer, his shadow falling over me. "It was your decision. You'll manage it, of course. But in the future, we discuss things of this magnitude first." "I'm sorry," I whispered, and the words tasted like ash. I wasn't just apologizing for the pregnancy. I was apologizing for my own existence, for disrupting his perfect plan. Lily's arrival was a burst of sunlight in my increasingly gray world. Holding her, I felt a flicker of the girl I used to be, the one my mother had loved so fiercely. I hoped her softness might soften him. It didn't. He visited us in the hospital for 10 minutes, pronounced her adequate, and left for a meeting with the gallery owner. At home, his control became a stranglehold. Lily's cries were an annoyance. My new mother exhaustion was a personal failing. "Other women manage perfectly well, Alara. Why is this so difficult for you?" When our son, Finn, came 2 years later, I hid the pregnancy from him for 4 months, terrified of his reaction. He just shook his head with a sigh of weary disappointment. By the time our youngest, Rose, was born, I was a wraith, a silent manager of his household and his children. His criticisms were a constant, low-humming current in our lives. "You've let yourself go. Try not to embarrass me at the dean's dinner party." My children were my only light. Lily's quiet drawings, Finn's endless, curious questions, Rose's gurgling laughter. But they were learning to live with the same fear that had become my constant companion. Lily would grow quiet when she heard his keys in the door. Finn learned to play silently when his father was home. I would sing them the lullabies my mother sang to me, my own tears falling silently onto their sleeping faces. I kept promising them, I'm here," but I was disappearing, and I was terrified that one day there would be nothing left of me at all. The change came on a quiet Tuesday evening. Lily, who was now 7, the same age I was when my world fell apart, crawled into bed with me after Marcus had gone out. She wrapped her small arms around my neck, her breath warm against my cheek. "Mommy," she whispered, her voice small and tight, "why is Daddy always so angry with you?" Her question was a lightning strike, illuminating the dark, terrifying landscape of my life. She was learning my fear. She was learning to walk on eggshells, to make herself small. I was teaching my daughter how to be me. And I would not, let that be her story. The next morning, I took the children to Eleanor's house, telling Marcus we were meeting friends at the park. Her beautiful home, once a symbol of my otherness, now felt like a sanctuary. We sat on the wide, shaded piazza while the children chased lizards in the garden. "You look so tired, Alara," Eleanor said, her kind eyes full of concern. I stared into my iced tea, the condensation dripping down the glass like my unshed tears. "Is it possible," I began, my voice barely a whisper, "for love to just run out?" Her gaze sharpened with an understanding that went beyond my words. Is he hurting you, honey? I shook my head, a reflexive, practiced denial. No, not really. He's just demanding. I'm not the wife he thought I would be. I think I disappoint him. Eleanor set her glass down with a decisive click. Alara, listen to me. Being a mother, being you, is not a disappointment. It is a miracle. And you do not ever have to apologize for the space you take up in this world. Her words were a lifeline. She saw me. Not the flawed wife of a successful man, but a mother, a woman, fighting to stay afloat. But my small act of rebellion had not gone unnoticed. Marcus came home early that evening, his face a thundercloud. You were at Eleanor's today, he stated, not a question. I saw your car on her street. The children wanted to visit their grandmother, I said, my voice trembling. Don't lie to me, he snarled, stepping into my space. You were talking about me, weren't you? Turning my own family against me. Before I could form a reply, his hand lashed out, the crack of it against my cheek echoing in the silent room. The sting was sharp, the shock of it breathtaking. I stumbled back, my hand flying to my face. From the doorway, I heard Finn's terrified gasp and Rose's sudden, wailing cry. Marcus turned his fury on them. See what you made me do, he hissed at me. Now you've frightened the children. I fled to the master bathroom and locked the door, staring at the rapidly purpling mark on my cheek. The woman in the mirror was a stranger, her eyes wide with a terror I finally recognized as my own. My hand shook as I pulled a crumpled piece of paper from my wallet, a number Eleanor had pressed into my hand as I left. The Harbor House, a local women's shelter. A calm, steady voice answered on the second ring. The Harbor House, this is Maria speaking. Are you in a safe place? No, I whispered, the single word breaking loose a torrent of silent tears. My husband, the children see it. We can help, the voice said, a beacon of sanity. Can you come? Can you get to us? I wasn't fast enough. As I was stuffing clothes into the duffel bag, I heard his footsteps. He appeared in the bedroom doorway, his gym bag slung over his shoulder. He'd come home early. Packing for a trip, he asked, his voice deceptively light. He saw the phone in my hand, and before I could react, he snatched it. He hit redial. I heard the faint sound of Maria's voice. The Harbor House, how can I? He ended the call, his face contorting into a mask of pure rage. You were going to run, he hissed, stalking toward me. You were going to take my children from me. Marcus, please, I begged, backing away until my shoulders hit the wall. He blocked my path, his hand raising again. I flinched, bracing for the impact. And then, the doorbell rang. A sharp, clear, insistent sound that shattered the awful tension in the room. Marcus froze, his fist still clenched in the air. Who the hell is that? He growled. I don't know, I stammered, my mind racing. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my flesh. Get the door. And if you say one word, you will regret it for the rest of your life. My legs felt like water as I walked to the door and peered through the peephole. My heart stopped. It was Leo. He was older, his face carrying the lines of time and responsibility, but his eyes were the same. Kind. Steady. Alara, his voice came through the thick wood, muffled but clear. It's Leo. Eleanor called me. She was worried. Please, just open the door. Who is it? Marcus hissed behind me. An old friend from college, I whispered, my voice shaking. Get rid of him, he ordered. And smile. With a clumsy, trembling hand, I turned the lock and opened the door. Leo stood on the threshold, and his warm smile faded as his eyes took in my face, the swollen cheek, the fear I couldn't hide. He didn't say a word about it. He just looked straight at me. Hey, Alara. Marcus moved to my side, a proprietary arm sliding around my waist. Can I help you? Leo Carter, he said, his gaze not leaving mine. I'm an old friend of Alara's. She's busy, Marcus snapped. And married. It's time for you to go. Leo's eyes finally shifted to Marcus, then back to me. I'll go if Alara asks me to. Otherwise, I think I'll stay. A choked, humorless laugh escaped Marcus's throat. You don't get to make decisions here. Leo took a calm step forward, into the foyer. From down the hall, Finn started to cry. I instinctively moved toward the sound, but Marcus's grip on my wrist tightened. "They're fine." "No," Leo said, his voice suddenly hard as steel. "They're not." Marcus lunged, but he was no match for Leo, who, with a swift, practiced movement, caught his arm and pinned him against the wall. "You'll pay for this," Marcus seethed. "I doubt it," Leo replied calmly. And then, a third voice joined the fray. "I would let her go, Mr. Thorne." Our elderly downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Gable, stood in the open doorway, her smartphone held up and glowing. "My camera's been recording for the last 2 minutes. Ever since I heard the shouting. I also took the liberty of calling the police. They should be here shortly." The color drained from Marcus's face. Leo released him and turned to me. His voice was gentle again. "Go get the kids, Alara. It's over. You're leaving." I looked at my children, huddled in the hallway, their eyes wide with fear, but also with a tiny, flickering spark of hope. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. The fear that had been my constant companion for years was finally drowned out by a new sound, the beautiful, ringing chime of freedom. The drive to the harbor house was surreal. Leo drove, his presence a quiet, solid reassurance in the passenger seat. The children were silent in the back, huddled together, their small world shattered and yet, somehow, beginning to heal. I stared out at the familiar Charleston streets blurring past, my heart a tumultuous sea of relief, terror, and a fragile, burgeoning hope. At the shelter, a woman named Maria greeted us with a smile that was all warmth and no pity. "You're safe now, Alara," she said, her first words a balm to my frayed soul. The shelter wasn't cold or institutional. It was filled with soft colors, comfortable chairs, and the quiet hum of compassionate voices. While I filled out paperwork, my hands still shaking, Maria knelt down to talk to Lily about her bunny. That night, tucked into a clean, simple room, I watched my children sleep, their faces finally relaxed, their breathing deep and even. A soft knock came at the door. It was Leo. "How are you doing?" he asked, his voice a low murmur. I couldn't find the words, so I just nodded. Why did you come?" He sat on the edge of the other bed, leaving a respectful distance between us. "Eleanor called me. I was in town for a marine conservation conference. She said you hadn't been answering her calls, that she had a bad feeling." I couldn't just do nothing. He paused, his gaze meeting mine. "I should have fought harder for you all those years ago, Alara. I'm sorry I didn't." Tears welled in my eyes, but for the first time in a long time, they were not tears of pain or fear. They were tears of being seen. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal meetings and therapy sessions. With the help of the shelter's legal aid, I filed for divorce and a permanent restraining order. Leo was a constant, steady presence. He didn't try to fix things. He just brought groceries, played catch with Finn in the shelter's small yard, and listened. He gave me the space to find my own strength. Slowly, the light began to return to our lives. I woke up one morning and realized the first thing I felt wasn't fear. Lily started to sing again. Finn made a friend. And Rose learned to giggle with her whole body. I wasn't just their shield anymore. I was becoming their source of warmth. After a few months, we moved into a small, rented cottage near Folly Beach, a place that smelled of salt air and new beginnings. The children and I painted the walls, ocean blue for Lily's room, seagrass green for Finn's, and sunny yellow for Rose's. We planted a small garden and filled it with wildflowers. Our lives were simple, but they were ours. On Saturday mornings, we made pancakes and didn't care about the mess. We were filling our home with laughter. Leo was still there, a quiet thread in the fabric of our new life. Our relationship wasn't a return to what we'd had in college. We were different people now, stronger for our scars. One afternoon, he handed me a small, velvet box. "It's not what you think," he said with a grin. Inside was a simple silver chain, and on it hung a perfect, whole sand dollar. "They say they're the currency of mermaids," he said softly. "A symbol of peace and stories of the sea." He told me about an art therapy center that had opened in Mount Pleasant, a place for children who had weathered their own storms. They need someone who speaks their language, Alara. They need you. I took the job. Walking into that classroom, seeing those small, hopeful faces looking up at me, I felt a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. I was home, not just in a house, but in myself. One evening, after the children were asleep, I sat by the small electric fireplace in our living room, the quiet hum a comforting sound. I opened my laptop and wrote a letter, not to mail, but for myself. To Marcus. You once told me I was broken, that I was lucky you were willing to put up with my flaws. For a long time, I believed you. I made myself smaller and smaller to fit into the perfect life you designed. But you were wrong. You didn't break me. You revealed me. Every sharp word, every cold silence, was just the relentless tide that wore away everything that wasn't true, everything that wasn't me. It washed away the fear and the doubt until all that was left was something smooth and strong and whole. I printed the letter, folded it into a small square, and dropped it into the fireplace, watching the paper curl and blacken, the words turning into smoke and disappearing into the night. The power was never in confronting him, it was in releasing him. Leo stirred on the couch where he'd fallen asleep reading a journal. "You okay?" he asked, his voice thick with sleep. I looked around our small, cozy living room, at the children's drawings taped to the walls, at the man whose quiet love had been a lighthouse in my darkest storm. I touched the sand dollar at my neck. Yeah, I smiled, my heart full and calm as a tide pool. I'm free. I don't know what the future holds. Perhaps one day I will sit down with my father, and we will find a way to build a bridge across the chasm of our past. Perhaps not. But I know that my story is no longer about the pieces that were broken. It's about the beautiful, resilient mosaic I am building in their place, one true, courageous, love-filled day at a time.